kidding me? Like, dude, we have got to be getting stream sniped.
Audio? No? Okay.
See what happens here. Okay, so instead of playing Apex, I'm gonna watch this clip that I don't know how this opened. But...
It is no secret that something changed with Apex's matchmaking recently. Leading up to the Season 18 launch, lots of players, myself included, were reporting that the queue time suddenly got a lot longer, and that the games themselves suddenly got a lot sweatier. Anyone in the top 50% or so of players found themselves thrown into lobbies filled with full Predator free stacks, all with their own kill badges, 4K damage badges, and 20 bombs. And the very nature of public, what are supposed to be casual lobbies, for anyone who's semi-decent at the game, changed overnight. The change was instant, but other than a few longer queue times and a higher level of challenge, the changes themselves weren't felt as fast. After the new SBMM changes hit, players started noticing that carrying was a lot harder, that their teammates weren't as good compared to the enemies, and that they needed to pull some more advanced strategies just to have a good time. And to combat the high competitiveness of these previously casual lobbies, the same players now started bringing in friends and equally skilled teammates and their own ALGS level strategies, all the way to holding hands and pushing as a full squad with excellent Navy SEAL Team 6 communication in, again, what used to be a casual mode. One of the many problems with this complaint is that yes, the games are more sweaty, but how do you define sweaty? Many players have a tendency to call anyone who's good at the game, or I guess better than them at the game, sweaty. Some other players, usually the ones that are commonly referred to as being the sweats themselves, refer to sweaty players as the ones who are literally breaking a sweat to play. If you ask me, I consider a sweat to be the latter, a player who won't play without the sweatband equipped, barking commands at his teammates, playing full meta compositions, holding hands with their pre-made team of like-minded people, trying really hard to win. And of course, that's my definition. I'm always curious to hear how you guys define sweats in the comments. And don't get me wrong, in a ranked competitive environment, I have no problem with people acting this way and being sweaty. But seeing this become more prevalent in what's supposed to be, again, casual, more fun lobbies, just really rubs me the wrong way. This change to the SBMM might seem so random and so completely out of the blue. I mean, the game's been out for what, 4 or 5 years now and nothing really changed. But honestly, it makes some sense. Making the SBMM this strict, where you place any of the top half of the player base into the much higher level sweaty lobbies, means that anything below the threshold, as in, I guess, the bottom half, is now a lot easier without having these occasional high-level players tearing through the lobbies. One could speculate that with this move, Respawn is trying to protect the casuals. But why now? While this is purely conjecture, EA did admit that Season 17 failed to meet their expectations in revenue, and that's a big deal because Apex is EA's golden cash cow. Typically, they boast about how well Apex is doing in their earnings calls when they speak to their investors, but this time around, the mood was reported to be a bit more sour. And what usually follows a rut is of course a change of pace and the more drastic decisions. I actually referenced this specific earnings call in a previous video when I was talking about the aim assist potentially getting a nerf or a change, because I believe it's a very important factor, a canary in the coal mine, so to speak, that change might be on the horizon. Now that Apex isn't performing as they expected, odds are we're going to see some more desperate changes trying to steer it back on its course. And odds are that one of the many changes were to protect the gameplay experience of the largest portion of the player base, that being the casuals and the bottom 50%. But with catering this hard to the casual side of things, to the point where you decide to throw anyone with over 2 brain cells to the wolves, things will come at a cost. My Twitter feed has been littered with almost every single creator having so many issues with enjoying the game, burning out, and not being able to create content the same way or in the same amount that they wanted to. In the same vein, I've noticed that the quality and in very many cases quantity of most of these content creators' videos is also going down. because every game now requires an insanely high skill level and sweatiness to match to pull off, and the ones who can hang in this added level of difficulty still can't get content out of it, because despite winning their team fights, all the lobbies are playing out in a way where they end up winning the game with maybe 5 or 8 kills to their name, very rarely being able to get any cool clips or an entertaining game in the process. I don't want to throw any creators under the bus, so I'm going to mention Madon, who is my go-to guy for background footage that you guys might recognize if you've watched my channel for more than 2 videos. Madon and many other like him are having a rough time, because every pub has devolved into another smaller version of the ALGS. Finding just a few minutes of background footage has turned from a smaller commitment into a daunting several-hour-long task, which is just crazy. And many players like him, and I guess the way the game is going, at this point, probably even me, will start to free stack with other like-minded and equally skilled individuals in order to tip the scales back in their favor. As I have covered several times on this channel by now, stacking breaks the matchmaking, and 9 out of 10 times your pre-made teammates will be better than any random teammates that you could get, but with the matchmaker still putting you in the same level of difficulty when it comes to the lobby, with the solo curious getting other not super good solo curious as dead weight, and them being the one out of the 20 squads in the whole lobby who's not in a pre-made stack. With these odds stacked against them, and seeing as it is very clear that stacking creates a massive advantage, even the most stubborn players have started to stack themselves. It's not because they want easy games or that they want an advantage, they just want to play the game. Don't get me wrong, stacks have been rapidly increasing for quite a while now, way before the changes to the SBMM, and you know, it's something I've been warning about for years now, but now that the matchmaking got that much stricter, almost every squad is in a stack, and we're already seeing the next step in the evolution. The stacks are starting to hold hands and apply ALGS level strategy in, again, the casual public match game mode that doesn't have any stakes. I don't know if there will be another level or stage after this, because honestly, if what's supposed to be a chill gaming session turns into a $5 million tournament, but without any actual reward, they'll probably just stop any new players for even getting into the game and promptly kill it. What is funny is that all of these complaints clearly only apply to pubs. If you're looking at ranked, the players at the very peak of the matchmaking actually find ranked significantly easier, no matter whether they are in a pre-made stack or not, simply because the teammates they get on their team generally are of a higher caliber than the randoms they get in pubs. Ranked obviously has a massive stack versus randoms problem, especially in the top tiers of ranked, and I do think that the ability of stacking should be looked at the very least in ranked, but in ranked, it's somewhat expected. You can make the argument that being in a stack is just what you're supposed to do if you want to play the game more seriously, just not in the casual lobbies, please. I also want to add that there's a glaring problem with the way SBMM works in most modern games. In the older games, any lobby could have players from any skill level, and you could have the worst players matched up against one of the best in the world in the same game. This good player would probably stomp the lobbies, but that wasn't a bad thing. He wasn't a sweat, he wasn't a cringe no-lifer. The bad players, generally speaking, looked up to this guy, and they were usually inspired to do better. There was a clear sense of progression and goals where you too know that if you put down the effort, you could, just like this guy, become good enough to start stomping lobbies on your own. But somewhere along the line, this got lost. The players who would find themselves at the bottom in the mixed lobbies only plays with other players at the bottom of their respective skill brackets, and he might actually falsely believe that he is one of the best. But if the player does realize that, wait, I need to improve, they might put down hours, days, weeks, months to get better and actually do become one of the best in their game, but somehow, despite all the effort, despite actually getting better, his stats end up looking the same. His games will, relatively speaking, feel the same, and at the end of all of this training, he doesn't have anything to show for it. One must imagine Sisyphus constantly grinding to improve his game skill, only to find that the lobbies continue getting harder. The SBMM keeps him in an eternal loop of improvement, just to face tougher enemies, but never giving him the reward of getting better. There is just no sense of progression within your skill until you're at the very top of the pyramid, out of millions of players. The only players who can improve themselves and get better than their lobbies exist on that tip of the pyramid. This pyramid has the best players in the game. These players are so high up that the SBMM cannot throw any better enemies at them because these guys are already the best that the game has to offer. And even then, if they are solo queuing, the matchmaking will give them 2 wet blankets as dead weight just to try to keep these good players down. And as a result of this, the players at the top of their matchmaking rating has started to stack themselves, forever breaking the matchmaker and the fairness of the games as we know it. And while it is pretty late in the video, and also if you're listening to my rant so far, thank you. I understand that from my perspective and from the perspective of those other crying content creators, it just looks like we want easier games, and don't get me wrong, we do, but it's not like we necessarily just want to play against worse enemies. If every game goes from everyone chilling out, because most content creators are chilling out when recording their gameplay, to everyone turning it into a sweat fest, it's not gonna be fun, it's gonna become a problem. Nobody should feel forced to put in their entire daily energy expenditure into a singular game of Apex. People should be able to chill out and still have some fun, but the way the SBMM currently is designed, anyone over a certain skill level aren't allowed to play for fun. Having the lobbies in this state causes a problem for the top percentage of the players as well. If they keep getting unenjoyable games, they might either just end up quitting the game because they aren't having fun anymore, or jump on Smurfs, new accounts to stomp through the low-level lobbies. Only now, due to how the matchmaking is designed, where they don't mix the top-rated and the bottom-rated players, there won't be other high-level players in the casual lobbies, making it so much easier for the Smurfs to stomp them even harder than previously. Either way, no matter how the cookie crumbles, as we see less players putting up with the poor quality of high SBMM pubs, the quality will continue to decline. The last few remaining players trying to toughen it out will see increasingly difficult lobbies, and are soon, if not already, forced to play in a stack and break the sweatpants out and adapt or lose. And personally, I'm sure some people, I guess the half of the community will disagree with me here. I want to see these changes to the SBMM reverted. Maybe it is for selfish reasons, because after all, it's not like Apex needs content creators anyways, right? But sacrificing the game and making it less enjoyable for the most dedicated of players just because they've put in the hours to get better doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel fair at all. Personally, the changes to SBMM have led me to stream a lot less. I've actually been focusing on spending more time on my content, returning to my roots, and making sure that I'm proud of every video that does come out on this channel. And of course, if you want to be part of that journey, you should subscribe. I will try to stream maybe once or twice a week, at the moment looking at Mondays or Fridays, so I don't lose my edge and completely go out of touch. But if the last weeks have been any indicator, having fun as a half-decent solo queue player in the current matchmaking is just impossible. Thank you guys so much for listening to my thoughts on this. I don't know how many people actually did hear me out fully, but if you did, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the SBMM in the comment section. Now that I've gotten my thoughts out, we can return to doing content like usual. If you want to hear more about stacking and SBMM and all that stuff, check out the video on the screen. But I will see you all tomorrow, so peace out.